You're watching Beyond Markets, where we bring you up to speed on development outcomes on the continent. My name is Kenneth Igbomor, and thank you so much for being a part of the show. Coming up, our discussion today is on how to soften the blow of the COVID-19 pandemic on small businesses. You can join the conversations and let us know what you think. The hashtag to use is at Beyond Markets. You can also hit at me up at Kenneth Igbomor. Now, the impact of the coronavirus pandemic is far-reaching as it affects everyday life and everything from health to trade, investment, and employment. So how can micro, medium, and small enterprises survive in this new normal? My guest today is Toyin Adeniji. She's the Executive Director for Micro Enterprises at the Bank of Industry, and she joins me now for today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And I'd like to start off with understanding your assessment of the COVID-19 pandemic and how you see this impacting businesses going generally.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, and thank you, Kenneth. So in terms of the COVID-19 and its impact, I think what we're seeing today is an unveiling of many ills of the economy, and possibly the worst economic meltdown that Nigeria, is going to ever experience. Certainly, MSMEs are a bedrock of the economy, and so therefore they will really feel the impact. So it's definitely a showdown on the economy. MSMEs are going to feel this. They are going to be more exposed to all the all the things that's going to rock the ecosystems that would normally support them. And this is going to play out in so many ways. Definitely, we're going to see a worsening and a deepening of wounds that MSMEs typically would feel. But the way I see it, there are, there's the good news and the bad news, or the good side and the bad side. And I think it's quite important not to see it all as gloom and doom, but for MSMEs to also begin to see how, where the light is shining at the end of the tunnel, or how they can create that light for themselves.
I like that, talking about the good and the bad sides to it, but I'd like to explore more on the good side and see what we can do. But I'd like to understand how working at home, we've seen the dynamics change so far. The lockdowns have happened in countries. Countries are easing their lockdowns now. But we still see companies and small businesses, some of them choosing to work from home. I'd like you to speak on how you see this impacting the businesses and their models going forward.
Yeah, so I think definitely, yes, we've all been working up from home, but I think for MSMEs, I think one of the fallouts of the pandemic is a new way of doing things, or what their new normal is going to look like. So as I said, so many things have been affected by the COVID-19. So certainly for MSMEs, they begin to look at their operations, they begin to look at their markets, their products or their services, because of definitely there's a diminishing ability for their customers to buy their products because of the purchasing power that would have gone down. Certainly they have to look at health issues, staffing issues, resourcing. Health and safety is going to be different. Access to cash, just so many things that they need to thrive. So by being locked down, they now have to really. I think they have to go back to the drawing table, and it's time to pivot. It's time to see what kind of changing models they can adapt, especially for small businesses, in the SME space. They have to look at virtual solutions, and we have definitely seen that happening, where a lot of the SMEs, especially in our portfolio, have had to reach their clients in a different way. They've had to be very creative. So a lot of virtual businesses or solutions. We've seen technology also being very strongly leaned upon to still meet their customers. We've seen, obviously, like we're having a Zoom or a virtual discussion now. We've seen a lot of that happening as well, and they're also using this very space to also reach their customers and to sort of meet their needs. So a lot of changes, a lot of pivoting, a lot of looking ahead, a lot of strategizing. And that's for SMEs. If you're now going to the micro, they again have to think along these lines. One thing about Nigeria is that the use of smartphones is nearly universal. So I think the incidence of smartphones is highest in a country like, it's one of the highest or the higher ones we've seen, comparatively. So there is need to, I mean, people are using these devices more, and so it's the new norm, and there is adaptation, and we have seen that adaptation happening.
No doubt technology is going to play a serious part in how companies are going to evolve their models, and how they're going to adapt to survive in this COVID-19 pandemic. But I'd like to still look at the first, coming back home and looking at Nigeria, looking at the setup and makeup of our small businesses in Nigeria. A lot of them are largely playing in the informal sector, and understanding how people in the informal sector, talking about social distancing, can keep up with the hygiene guidelines set up by the authorities. It's going to be quite a lot for some of the companies. I'd like to get your 2 cents on this.
Yeah. So yes, in terms of when we look at the MSME space in Nigeria, I know by probably some of the data we have from NASME, Sweden, we know that we have more than 37 million MSMEs in Nigeria, and we know that they do form a big part of our contribute to the economy. A lot of them are I think of about 18 to 20 million of these are actually in the micro sector. And so we know the typical challenges that MSMEs face. So funding is always a big part. Access to resources, and also ability to be, and they cannot afford a lot of support services that they would need. The incidence of COVID-19 is one that has many areas that have to be dealt with. So when we talk about, yes, work from home, social distancing, and even when some level of lifting comes with the level of lifting we have on the lockdown now, going back to work, what are the new norms? You have to be 2 meters apart from your next colleague. You have to have certain things in place for work, for the work environment to be safe. And this is a huge cost to these MSMEs. So what I foresee is that, again, it's going to be a halfway road. The cost that they would need to survive all of this would be huge, and so they would still have to, I think, have a blend of those that can stay at home. What can be done virtually has to be done. We're definitely going to see a sort of rationalizing of resources. So they're going to probably have to, think about, combining roles, having fewer staff, and they're going to need support. And I think the government and the Bank of Industry, have also, thought, or at least we are thinking through this, and also seeing how we can support them in terms of making it lighter or making it easier for them.
All right, now I'd like to get to that level of support. What are we seeing from Bank of Industry on how you're helping cushion the blow on the impact for these small businesses?
Okay, so thank you very much, Kenneth. So as you know, prior to COVID-19, which nobody ever saw coming, the Bank of Industry has been very focused on MSMEs, and MSMEs is a key part of our strategy, our portfolio. It's something that we continue to think of new ways to support or to make them stronger, to empower them. So at all times, we are thinking of new products, always in development, and new channels to reach the MSMEs. But specific to COVID-19 and what our response has been, is to immediately look at our existing portfolio and see how we can ease the pain. So we have restructured a lot of our loans. We have given them longer moratorium, both for principal and for interest. Interestingly, we've seen some coming back to us and saying they would take maybe the moratorium on the interest, but not on the principal. So we've had, sort of some learnings from this. As I said, we've restructured our facilities. We've done a reduction on our interest rates. As you know, the Bank of Industry has one of the lower interest rates in terms of pricing, and so we have further reduced this for the MSMEs. We've also begun to look at, or begun to even do more on other channels that we use to reach the MSME. So technology is a big part that we're using. We're using at the micro level, where you're thinking of informal entrepreneurs or informal micro entrepreneurs. We're using technology to drive this. As you may be aware that Bank of Industry was the executing agency for the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, which hosted or which developed the trader money and farmer money and market money products. And so we are using a similar technology and methodology to drive credit down to the informal sector. And so that means that we're creating new products that can reach, market women, can reach all the informal sector with credit. And so that's something we're championing. On the side of the smaller businesses, or the SMEs, as would like to know them, we're also looking at new products. One of the key issues that MSMEs have to face is the issue of collateral. And so we're looking at how can we mitigate our risk? How can we manage risk for MSMEs? And so, of course, technology comes into play as well. Data comes into play as well. We're building virtual platforms. We're building marketplaces to help connect the dots. For MSMEs, supplier chains, distributor chains are very important. So we're also looking at how do we connect the value chain? How do we step into it and make it sustainable? How do we step into it and make it and bake a bigger pie for the MSMEs? So we're looking at in terms of channels, we're looking at other channels. In terms of funding, we're also looking at, we're trying to also step out of the traditional form of funding where MSMEs are used to just receiving what I would call plain vanilla credits. And we're looking at other fundings where today the Bank of Industry has developed a tech and innovation fund, and that is something that will be launched anytime from now. We're already very far gone in that. We also have a venture debt program that is also in the making. Again, how do we support these MSMEs, especially the ones that are tech biased or skewed in the technology space? So the Bank of Industry is always at the drawing table, as I said, to support MSMEs in different kind of areas, be it the channel of reach, be it the channel of their business, learning more about their businesses themselves, looking at value chains, looking at the very informal sector, looking at the slightly structured SMEs, and just trying to close that credit gap, which is the main thing which we know is a main challenge for MSMEs.
All right, Toyin, I just need to hold that thought for a while. We'll take a quick breakdown. Definitely, when we return, we'll hear more about what the Bank of Industry is trying to do to support MSMEs at this time. Thank you so much. I've been speaking to Toyin Adeniji. She's the Executive Director for Micro Enterprises at the Bank of Industry. We'll bring you more on Beyond Markets after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Markets. If you're just joining us, I've been speaking with Toyin Adeniji, the Executive Director for Micro Enterprises at the Bank of Industry here in Nigeria. She's our guest today, and we've been assessing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on small businesses and what the Bank of Industry is doing to support these small businesses. Thank you again so much for your time on the show, Toyin, today. And I'd like to get to some of the areas, the hardest hit sectors. Earlier you were talking about, what the Bank of Industry is doing, talking about reducing interest rates and moratoriums on some of the loans that you give out to these businesses. But I'd like to know what's in place for the hardest hit sectors, from this COVID-19 pandemic.
So it depends on how we want to define hardest hit sectors. So definitely I have seen a few reviews on different sectors and trying to sort of, there was a particular report that tried to sort of differentiate on which sectors would be really worst hit. and those that would kind of maybe fare well. So, for example, in response specifically to COVID-19, we have looked at things like the health sector. We have looked at logistics. We have looked at technology, because immediately there's a need to enhance them. There's a need to enhance those sectors. And so what that means is that we've gone to our portfolio, we've had meetings with them, we've come together with them to develop, to understand what exactly their needs would be, and we've created special funds, specifically for these sectors. As a matter of fact, we were able to even be catalytic to other funds from other development banks, within the continent, who have also lent or lent their weight in terms of funding to this pool that we have created. So we've made that immediately available. In terms of sectors that would probably be a little, would feel this the more. So I forgot to mention the agri sector, the agri space is also, food processing, agri processing is also an area that we have had to focus on immediately. On other sectors, manufacturing, hospitality, maybe light construction, or companies or manufacturing that supports the construction or building industry. These are sectors that are going to have to really reposition themselves. These are sectors that are going to have to also be handheld, so that they can sort of pivot if they have to. Hopefully not not a 360-degree pivot, but at least begin to really understand what they need to do to be able to survive in the new norm. So again, the Bank of Industry is not leaving them out and dry, and so we are helping them with non-credit support, whereby, or not, yeah, non-credit support, whereby we're doing virtual sort of engagements like this, sector sort of analysis, what they need to do, how they need to think about this. So that's some of the things we're doing. Also, the Bank of Industry does have a pool of business development service providers that we have already engaged. And so again, we're encouraging them to work closely with these MSMEs to help them sort of chart the way forward at this time.
Talking about surviving in the new norm, I would like to take it a little bit out of the hands of the Bank of Industry now, and then look at more we can build a more resilient ecosystem for small businesses in Nigeria. Maximizing e-channels, leveraging on technology a little better to make sure that at the end of the day, the ecosystem around where these companies are operating is supporting their survival.
Yeah, I think, yes, certainly, outside of the Bank of Industry, the new norm is one where we now have to seriously look at the ecosystem for MSMEs and understand, what are the big pieces that will make them thrive. So funding actually is just one of the pieces that an MSME needs to survive. Policies that drive the functioning of MSMEs is also very important. Today, MSMEs have to go through so many hoops to be in operation, so many informal taxes to be in operation. And so even by the time they get to that stage, there's a lot of frustration, and the business is already struggling to survive even before it starts. MSMEs are unable to afford professional services. So a lot of them would set up, agree or finalize on contracts, tax issues without consulting any expert to help them through this situation. So again, how do we pool resources for MSMEs? So, by way of, I've said, funding policy, by way of professional services which they need to survive. Then strategy. How many MSMEs can think that, what I'm doing today is not going to work. So what do I need to do tomorrow? Again, they need professional services. How do we help them to get on platforms, virtual platforms? Again, individually, they might not be able to get on one platform. So there's a need to create these kind of to create the structures that will enable them to thrive. Looking at also in terms of the provider of the services, how do we begin to really sell the concept of non-financial services? MSMEs need more than finance to survive. So the issue of non-financial services has to be seriously dealt with. You know, support. How do we mentor MSMEs? How do we ensure that they are on the value chain that they need to be to become suppliers to the bigger companies? How do we create access to markets? So even though we're small, which is, as I said, the bedrock of any economy, we're small, but we need to be able to connect with the bigger companies. How do we ensure that we have access to those markets, to those companies? How do we ensure that we have access to training, and other resources? So there is an ecosystem within which MSMEs will thrive. Funding is only one of them, and the COVID-19, I believe, has thrown up or revealed some of the cracks that needs to be fixed. And as far as I know, the government is looking at this. The government was very quick to announce palliative measures not only for MSMEs. And I saw a lot of it sort of directed and targeted at MSMEs in different forms. So I believe that there's help and there's hope for MSMEs, but we need to focus on non-financial services as well.
Talking about hope, I'd like to look at some of the positives you think that can come out of this whole situation here. New business models that could come out of this, new ideas that could come to solve older problems. And, just let's look at the positives that could come out of this.
So there, as I said at the beginning, that there's sort of the bad news and the good news, and the good news speaks to the positives that will come out of this, because some of these MSMEs, they are used to should I say, in Nigeria, they're used to struggling to survive. They're always on the mark, on the point. They're always ready to sort of pivot. They're also ready to sort of see how to sort of really overcome all the barriers that they face. So with COVID-19, it's just another sort of obstacle that they have to face. Maybe this time, obviously, more serious because of the different aspects that sort of comes with it. But I see new models coming up. The virtual one is it's all over the place. I mean, today, even small, dry cleaning services are now doing home service. All the hospitality, or most of the hospitality businesses, they're all doing home deliveries. Today, even the corner supermarket is doing like ×3, ×5, ×10 the normal business it would do. Why? Because beyond, you can't come to the shop, you can't come to the pharmacy, everybody's doing delivery. And what has happened with that? The logistics sort of business has suddenly improved. Today, you order something, with less than 500 naira, you can get it delivered at home. Today, the vegetable seller could not go to mile 12. And so the wholesale vegetable supplier to mile 12 today is going directly to their end customer. Today, you are seeing even the mile 12, thinking, we've been out of business, but we need to survive. So that whole virtual space, we're going to see that really booming and exploding. And what that means is that we have to, the technology to support that is also going to boom. Today, again, funding also has been, an issue in the 6-8 weeks of lockdown. SMEs still had to thrive. And so they're able to think of different ways of managing their costs, of negotiating credit that did not exist before. They're negotiating different types of credit now. they're looking at different types of investors now. The customer in some ways is also becoming an investor, in terms of, payment agreements and all of that. So I see a whole load of things. And as I said, the government is also very, reactive. They're reacting, or they're being very proactive about this. And so, the either through the CBN, you're seeing a lot of supporting sort of policies coming out to support SMEs and the bigger SMEs as well. There's provision of, priority FX markets. There's provision of, priority facilities through the NERSAL, MFB, or directly from the CBN. So yeah, I just see a new, technology is going to be a key driver. And as I said, BOI is ready to catch this. We do have a tech fund that that is in the process right now. It was announced, I believe, sometime last year, and now just the details are being worked out to support these tech companies that will drive the new SME, the new and progressive SME space, MSME space.
Yeah, quite a lot to look at here when you look at the far-reaching impact of the micro, medium, and small enterprises in the country, and how their impact across board affects everyone from health to unemployment. Thank you so much for your contributions on the show today. Definitely quite a lot to ponder on and look at as we try to forge ahead and beat this COVID-19 pandemic. I've been speaking to Toyin Adeniji. She's the Executive Director for Micro Enterprises at the Bank of Industry. Thank you so much for your time. And that's it on Beyond Markets for today, and thank you so much for being a part of the show. Remember, you can catch all episodes of Beyond Markets on our website. That's at cnbcafrica.com. Each episode airs daily at 5 p.m. West African time. From me and the team, have a wonderful day and definitely stay safe.